Seconds out.
Let's call the Rusk County Board of Supervisors to order on March 19th, 2024. Roll call. Present. We have a quorum. Pledge of invocation by Jonathan Undershoots. Ms. Phil cannot be here. It's my mistake. Pledge of allegiance by Bob Stout.
Heavenly Father, we come before you and ask for your mercy, your blessing upon this meeting and on the people here. Your hand upon the county and the people of this county. Your blessing, your protection. We pray for a good meeting tonight, a productive meeting, and make the right decisions for the county. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looking for an approval for the February 27th and March 7th meetings, or minutes. Motion by Mr. Mike Raven, second by Mike Schmidt. Any questions, changes, or anything? If not, we can vote. $17 yes, passed by majority. Public comment, limit to 3 minutes per person with maximum public comment of 30 minutes on agenda items only. Any public comment? Any public comment? Go ahead.
We're talking about that agenda right there?
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Any other public comment? We'll close public comment. Presentation, update from the Samuels Group and Venture Architects.
Evening, everyone. Good to see you this evening. Can't believe it's been 3 weeks since we seen you last. Time flown. So when we left last time, we had gotten approval from you about distributing the letters to your community. That is well underway. They should start receiving letters next week, so we're hopeful that all those letters will be received over the week of March 25th to be able to prepare them for the upcoming meetings on April 3rd, 4th, and 5th, where Hauser Hawkins and Ladysmith. So that's underway. Also, the website, we left a link with you last time to be able to review the website and give you a little bit of homework to look at it and give us some feedback if there's any questions or tweaks that you want to have made to the website. Is there anything that you saw at the website that brought some questions to you, or adjustments or changes that you would want to have on that website? Because it is our intention to make that website live, so because there is a link on the letter, and I'd like to be able to get your approval to have that website become live. You must have liked it.
No, but I mean, when you first got the website.
Yep.
The link wouldn't work.
Okay.
Okay, and then a day or two later, I think Ashley sent the link again, and it did work.
Yep.
So I hope you got a right link that does work.
Yes.
In your letter. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, the link that you were given was kind of a backdoor entrance because it wasn't live for the public yet. Once you guys give us, the okay, now the taxpayers will be able to actually go into their address bar and punch in the address, and then the website will come up. So it was intended that you guys had that specific link that was emailed to you to be able to review it and then make comments, so.
Very good, thank you.
Right?
Has anything been added for the financing of it?
Yes, we've updated that. I actually have some information for you tonight that I'll show you about the financing side of that, but it is on there now. And there's some good news in regards to what the financing package looks like, so I'll do that in a brief PowerPoint here, but it is added to the website now.
Mr. John Undershoots.
Hi, you probably don't remember me from the last.
I don't, no.
So, I'm looking at the tax impact on that website, the proposed website. And then you have the capital improvement plan, which you said is hypothetical. Who came up with that hypothetical plan?
So the capital improvement plan is something that, from the county's perspective, when you put together kind of a long-range budgeting or planning session, is that a lot of times the counties will wanna talk about what is the opportunity to be able to continue to borrow. And I know you, the county, have been considering some capital improvement projects. So each one of those capital improvement projects that are identified there would still need your approval every time it would come before the board. But that was a projection that was based on kind of the long-range plan of what the county may need above and beyond what the jail project would be.
That's the, free committee came up with the numbers, or the finance committee?
I don't know who came up with the numbers, but
So that, they were based off of historical.
So this is, so what the numbers are is what we've kind of been already doing historically.
In the CIP column?
Yes.
Yes,
With the tower project added in as well.
yes. So that's 6 million was the tower and then highway projects.
Otherwise, traditionally, it's been about 3 million a year. So that one, it increased, I mean, that we're already paying tax on that much, right? I mean, so that would increase our tax.
Well, we bond every other year for $3 million.
So we
we'll be
continue the same
increasing our
practice that we've been doing. And then, so the jail part would be extra in addition. And then it has 30.5 million for the bond amount. It doesn't have the interest. I know I asked this last time, what was the interest amount?
yeah, the total, and then there's a second page on there. You're looking at the summary. If you go to the second page there, it actually shows you what the principal and interest would be on the jail loan. It's $61,837,000 would be the principal and interest total.
I think that's it.
Great.
I had less questions last time.
All right. You might have questions when I get through the PowerPoint as well. So I guess what I'd like from you tonight would be some, the okay to make that website live. I know you've had a chance to take a look at it. There is a lot of information on that website that I think will answer a lot of what your taxpayers' questions may be. So when they get their letter, it would be our goal that the letter is going to get to them next week. Then the meetings would happen April 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It would give them some time to log into that website, get some of the data that's already there, and then come to the town hall meetings for us to give a brief presentation and then ask additional questions that they may have in regards to the jail. So, feedback on, any other feedback on the website? Anything you want changed, or be okay with moving forward with that? Okay. I'm gonna go through a quick PowerPoint. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but Ashley's got it brought up here. This is still in the works. This would be the PowerPoint that we would present at the town hall meetings. And again, I'm probably gonna cruise through this quicker than what I do at the presentation, but I kinda wanna show you the format and then get some feedback from you in regards to whether we wanna make some changes in regards to the presentation. So obviously, we would go to our next slide here. It's gonna talk about the meeting outline. We'll do some intros. We'll talk about the need. We're gonna talk a little bit about the history of how we got to where we are. The proposed solution, you guys saw the video last time. We're gonna have that there. Tax it, impact information, and then we'll get into learn more that gives them a tie to get to the website or other data, and then we'll have Q&A. Next slide. So again, at the introductions, we will have, myself will be there, Corey and Kyle from Venture will be there, and then any county representatives will do an introduction so they know who's in the room to be able to answer their questions. And then we'll get into the needs. So one of the things coming out of last month's board meeting, why I want to do more emphasis on the need, is I think there is just some more detail or information about that your jail replacement is more than just classification. Classification is a big piece of it, but your jail is nearly 40 years old. It is a linear design. And if I said linear jail not designed, to most people, they wouldn't understand what a linear jail is. The question would be, what's different than a linear jail? So I've got some examples here, one I'm gonna show you in the next slide, and we're working on another one that will do a comparison between a pod or a linear design jail. But linear jails themselves do cause additional safety concerns in regards to how they work, how they function, the elements that are tied into that. So you've got a linear jail that's nearly 40 years old. You've got a jail that has limited receiving cells. And your receiving cells are your cells that are in your booking area. They give you the flexibility in regards to managing your general population. And we'll talk a little bit about that in regards to the comparison between the pod and the linear side. You have an unsafe flow of the arrestee from the sally port to the booking area. You're really going into an enclosed elevator. That is a time and a place when those individuals who aren't thrilled about being arrested can become combative, and you're parking them inside of this small elevator, this confined area, to bring them up into this small booking area. You got some water infiltration into the portions of the building. Your project does have issues with meeting classifications to comply with the DOC, and then you've got inadequate space for storage. The medical area and the programming is not existent because you don't have the space to be able to do that. Next slide. This is really the example of what a pod jail would look like. So right now, we're working on an example that would show you the linear. I didn't want to bring up the floor plan of your jail for security reasons. We're not gonna expose what your floor plan looks like, but essentially your floor plan in the jail is a long hallway with cells on either side of it. The sight lines are an individual that does a 60-minute round, puts their eyes on an individual once an hour. Otherwise, it's only a camera component. This pod design that you have here really shows that officer stations that's in the middle. There are day rooms. It's all glass in front of them so that they can see what's happening and the activity that's taking place inside of that pod. This is the most staff efficient model that you can build within a jail to be able to give you the best safety components tied back into a jail design. And the analogy that I have used to explain this is if we took your car and we told you needed to drive down the street and we were to black out your windshield, and the only thing that you were able to use to drive your car was a small screen above your stereo, that's what you're doing when you're functioning and looking at a jail without a pod design. This pod design gives you the visual of all the day rooms into the cells of what's happening. The cameras are still there for recording purposes and to be able to catalog and dialogue the things that are happening there. But the linear jail is you're only looking through cameras, and there's elements tied into that. So the flow of this jail would be the vehicle sally port into pre-book, into the booking, and then into the pod. The pod is really the element that you guys are missing in regards to being able to be efficient and be able to properly classify. Next slide. So this is the classification. I know you guys have seen this on the website, but this is the classification examples of how do we get to multiple classifications, because it's always a discussion of, we got men and women, how can there be that many classifications? Yep, we've got men and women that are housed in the same housing unit. What the DOC requires is that there's an objective classification process. That means that the jail staff, when somebody comes into their jail, has to objectively classify them, meaning understand and get to know the history of that individual and the things associated with their situation. And then they have to properly place them in a housing unit so that they are not put at risk or put others at risk within that jail. So if you look at the classification examples, you have the male and the female, the minimum, medium, and maximum, and then there are sub-classifications. So each individual that comes in there is gonna have different circumstances surrounding why they're in jail. And I'll let you read them, but the reality is that there can be a co-conspirator, meaning that they've been involved in an event with somebody else that's in the jail. Obviously, those two individuals can't be housed with one another. That may drive them to a decision that one of those individuals may not be able to be housed with anybody else that's in that jail because of ongoing investigation and things tied back into that. There are special needs that are medical and mental tied back into those elements to be able to put those into a housing unit that's not compromising or putting them in that situation. There's separation in regards to any past history, anything that's tied back into legal issues that are tied into that, of how they're gonna classify them. There's those that have suicide watch, there's pods that have to be utilized for discipline to be able to separate individuals from others. You've got the issues in regards to individuals who are being victimized, and then obviously transgender is affecting the jail population as well. Some of these things you may say, is this happening in our backyard today? Some of them, they may not be. Some of them could be on the horizon, some of them are coming your way. But the reality is that you haven't been compliant in regards to the classifications, and these are some of the descriptions of how we got to that. Next slide. So I'm just gonna cruise through these pictures. I'll spend more time on the presentation. This is on the website so you can see them. You're dealing with a building that's nearly 40 years old. When you talk about the life cycle of a lot of the infrastructure that's tied into that, it's lived its life and beyond. Next slide, you got water infiltration issues. The bars on a jail, I think I talked about this to you last time, bars on a jail are something that are no longer used for issues in regards to tie-off points. Those things need to be removed, they need to be moved in a different direction. You got limited receiving cells. There's obviously some things that are tied back into the space requirements that you have and exposure for what's in the jail. Next slide. One on the left-hand side talks about, it just shows you what the corridor is. That's the sight line that you're seeing. You're seeing to the end of the corridor. You're not seeing into the cells. Pictures don't do this justice. The second one shows you the Sallyport elevator, the Sallyport corridor that gets to the elevator that takes you up into the booking area. Where your dispatch and your master control are tied into, there's a lot of exposure in regards to how that functions, because there is no secure vestibule between those individuals who are a fresh arrest or those that are in the jail that are working around that area. It's open a door and you're into the main controls of the jail. There is no secure vestibule that's there. There's a whole lot of things that are tied into your jail, and there's a reason why when you did the master plan study that the jail rose to the top in regards to the needs. There's time for a replacement in those components. Next slide. This talks about the limited space on your storage, medical room. Obviously there is issues in regards to where the call buttons are and how they're not accessible to the inmates. So essentially they're not an emergency call button. So there's a lot of things you got going on in the jail outside of classification, and these things kind of highlight that. Next slide. These are tied back into your courts connection and the elements that are not compliant in regards to that connection that will be addressed with the project. Next slide. Okay, so this will cruise through real quick. Go to the next slide. This is the history. This will be something that the taxpayers will be able to see of how you got to where we are today, meaning that there was a master plan. You guys took action on regards to doing this communication plan. There was an ad hoc committee prepared. We've been working on this for over a calendar year to come up with multiple iterations. Next slide. So the colored segment on the right hand side there is really the floor plate of your jail. There was a question last time about was remodel considered, and my response was remodel was not considered. And I didn't do a great job of explaining the not consideration of the remodel. The reality is whenever you do a project like that, remodel is the first thing you consider, but sometimes you quickly kick it to the curb because there isn't the opportunity to do so. And that's why when we get the other model that shows you the linear versus the modular jail, you don't have enough real estate here or square footage to be able to get the proper cell count that you have in place here. So right now, the size of your cells that are in your jail right now are not compliant to what the International Building Code requires for those cells to be. So as soon as we touch a project of your size, it becomes a significant remodel event, meaning that all of the elements that are inside of that building that are not compliant with code have to be brought up to code. So to summarize this slide, if just the floor plate of what your current jail is, to be able to take that second floor and renovate it, to be able to get it code compliant in regards to the size of those cells, you would lose your bed count. Your bed count would go down by 14 beds, okay? And the element on that is that we're not dealing with the things that you have dealing with your Sallyport, with your intake and all those elements that are tied back into that. So the elements that are in there that are in green, there's some areas in there that we can't touch in real estate. Those are stairways and egress elements that are in there. The main green area that's on the right-hand side is your master control or your dispatch area. So the red is what we would be able to tie into. And it still doesn't get you the space for what you have for programming and all those other elements. So the next question would be if we just do an addition, and go on to the next slide. If we just started doing additions, we looked at all of these different scenarios. This is the one I talked about with you last time. We did look at the most cost-effective approach to your jail is to build just the jail as close as you can to the building and the proper size of the jail. And this was the model that we talked about, was parking that housing unit as close as we could to the existing building, so the link between the housing unit and the courts was as short as possible. This is the one that included closing minor. Explained that to you last time, that was not an option that was considered because of obviously the issues surrounding getting that approved to close minor Ave. Next option that we looked at was looking at the direction or discussion was, let's see what we can maximize on the east side of the campus. As you can see, to be able to keep the programming consistent, meaning that we weren't gonna reduce scope in regards to bed count, space of the building. You can see that when we park that model over on the right-hand side or the east side of the campus, we start to encroach on 4th Street. So we're closing another street. You can go on to the next slide. This one here was keep it inside of the footprint of the campus. And you can see the massing of what's tied back in to be able to meet with that programming. We're demolishing large portions of the existing building to an expense that you're now having to displace those individuals, you're having to find new space for them, the dollars continue to mount. Next slide. This one here is kind of in the same model. This one here shows that we still have demolition on that right-hand side that is gonna be taken off that far east wing. The setbacks are being compromised in regards to what we have to do with the street to be able to get to the street, so it wasn't fitting into that element. Next one. This one here was one where we reduced the scope. We actually took the bed count and significantly reduced this. I think we were down to a max of 60 beds, is that right? I think it was like 50 and max of 60 beds. And it was a compromise in regards to scope, with the cost still being significant because this one ended up being a stacked element and it wasn't as staff efficient in regards to this option. Next slide. This one here was another one where it was renovation of that second floor, so it was taking the programming piece and taking that second floor and renovating it. The renovation side in regards to the displacement of the spaces that were in there wasn't cost effective in regards to that solution either. And then we ended up, we did this one as well. This one was here of taking that housing unit. It was really taking everything on the south end, putting the housing unit there so it was close to the courts as possible, and then parking the intake side on the right-hand side, and you can see how that started to encroach outside the block as well. And here's the one that we settled on. This one was a fine balance between the cost. So some of those other ones ranged anywhere from $36 to $48 million. This one here was more of the middle of the road. This thing gave you the opportunity that you were going to build on county-owned property. There was a link to your existing buildings, so we're minimizing the amount of renovation of the existing structure. It gives you the expansion opportunity in the future, that if someday when you have to replace the courthouse, you could start to flip the campus in regards to where that may go and still have a connection to the jail. And that's how we got to the option today. So now we get into the proposed solution. We talked about this last time in regards to that it brings those antiquated systems up to code. It addresses a classification issue. It talks about the safety that's tied back into that. It does give you opportunity for expansion in the future, and then we're dealing with county-owned property. We're not acquiring private-owned property to be able to build the building. Next slide. This is a video. We don't need to go through this. Everybody can watch that. The tax impact is the one that everybody wants to look at. So the question has already been raised. Essentially, for a $38.5 million borrowing, your max tax impact for your jail would be 73 cents per thousand. So what that equates to is an individual that has a $100,000 home, their taxes would increase by $73 a year. or $6.08 a month. So the question was tied back into the CIP. So what the capital improvement projects, why this is listed here, is showing you from a taxpayer's impact on their annual tax component. The county is more than likely not gonna borrow all $38.5 million in one borrowing if this project is approved. They've got financial advisors that are gonna come in with strategies, and more times than not, those borrowings are done over subsequent years. There's different things that are considered in regards to the market, what the interest rates are, the need in regards to what the outlay would be every year, because obviously all of that money's not gonna be spent. As the contractors are building it, they submit pay applications, we do a forecast on what that is. So the max impact is once everything is borrowed, that's what your max mill rate would be. The next sheet that shows you here is it starts to show you where that debt starts to get paid off, and there's a lot of small numbers in there. When you get on the website, this information will be available for you to look at. How it works in regards to over the life of that borrowing is that you're gonna see that borrowing is going to peak, and then as you start to pay that off, that mill rate is gonna start to decline. So when he talks about a max mill rate that's tied into that, that's the max in regards to when all those borrowings take place. All of those CIP borrowings would be something that would have to be board approved in the future in regards to whether you wanted to do that or not. But the number, whenever we deal with these communications plans, is that it's 73 cents per thousand, or $73 per $100,000 valuation annually, or $6.08 a month for those taxpayers. Next slide. This is one here that I talked a little bit about the construction inflation last time I was here, because the principal and interest discussion always comes up, right? And the principal and interest discussion is, what is it really costing the county? Just like when you go to purchase your home and you pay for a home and you sign your life away on that mortgage that's hundreds of pages deep, you're not paying you don't pay for your home if you borrow money what you paid for the day that you closed. You're gonna pay a much larger number because of the principal and interest that you're gonna pay over that. That's a great question in regards to what you do with county borrowings. The construction inflation, like I said last time, that is something that more times than not is always a number higher than the interest that you're looking to borrow. What Baird has projected in regards to your borrowing, and we believe he's been conservative, somewhere between 4.25% and 4.5% on your jail borrowing. And these increases that we have seen historically over the last 3 years, these numbers are not even close. They were much larger than that. But I did this just to show you that at $38.5 million of every year that you don't build, what the cost of the project will continue to increase. So by year 10, the cost of that project will be nearly $60 million if your construction inflation is only 5%. And now you get to borrow for that with interest on top of that. Where by year 10, if you would have borrowed the $61 million and started the project, by year 10, you would have this paid down into the 30s, so you would have been ahead of the game. Reason that I show you this is majority of the counties that I work with, when you walk into them and you talk about a large capital expenditure like that, they don't have the general funds just to pay for it out of pocket. There's a borrowing that's tied into that. So the question is when do you wait and how do you wait? The question that you may have, and this is the data that we're working on to be able to give you some comparisons, is that out-of-county expense. When you're dealing with out-of-county housing, that is something that hits your operating budget. It doesn't hit what you can't borrow for those operating costs, right? Now, there are some components that are tied back into it if you decide not to do anything. If you decide not to do anything, that's when you're gonna see the DOC step in and they're gonna reevaluate your beds, meaning that your 52 bed number is going to go down. They're gonna look at the double bunking and say, there isn't compliance in regards to what these classifications may be, we're gonna have to pull some beds, which means that your out-of-county housing is going to be more. It's difficult to do a projection on your out-of-county expenses, because we can take the number $50, $55 and quickly place that on a head and say, here's what it's gonna cost if we park all of them out of county. The difficult thing about that is that your fixed expenses on your jail don't go away. There isn't an option where you can say, we want somebody else just to take care of those individuals that we arrest. Because what happens is when you bring fresh arrests in, you have to have a place for those individuals to be brought in through that booking component, through that intake, pre-booking, the booking area, to be able to sit there for anywhere from 48 to 72 hours before they then can be placed. What that does is it still requires you to have the staff that you have right now on hand to be able to function to that. So anything that's out of county, and if you don't move forward, you're gonna see a significant drop from 52 down to probably below 20. That means that you're gonna have all those out of county expenses that are tied back into that. And those are elements that are difficult to be able to categorize because the transport is a big number. And I've worked with counties that they've had to invest in buying transport vehicles. Those transport vehicles can be north of $100,000. You have to have staff that are tied back into that. That cost that you pay for out of county only addresses when they're parked there and their meals. It doesn't deal with all the medical expenses that are tied into that. There's a reason why counties don't do the out of county expenses, because you're not controlling your own expenses. And if I told you that out of county expense, based on that drop, is north of $1 million, because it's probably where it's going to be, you would have to look at your operating budget and say, what services are we gonna cut to be able to come up with $1 million annually to be able to deal with their out of county expenses? To also be in the position that the other counties are not required to take your inmates. They're not. They can tell you, no, thank you, we're not interested in it. And those that do take your inmates, they take those that are the most well-behaved. Those that are not well-behaved, no, thank you. Or if you want us to take your or not best well-behaved individuals, you're gonna pay more. And that's the reality of what happens with the housing. So there's things that are tied back into that, and I'll do my best to explain that at the town hall meetings with individuals so they understand it, because these numbers grow very quickly in regards to what the inflation looks like. So, next slide. So then we'll have a learn more piece. They've got this whole phone thing that people can scan with their phone. I don't know how many people will use that. The website is ruskcountyjailproject.com. Again, after tonight, if I don't hear any against that, we're gonna make that live by next week when the letters will hit, and then they can tie back into there. There's a lot more detail in there than what I've just given to the group. I've tried my best to keep it under a half an hour here, because otherwise people's eyes start to roll back and I lose them, and then we can do it into the Q&A piece. So last slide there will just be Q&A, and at that point in the meeting, we will then let the public ask some questions, and there may be some very elementary questions, there may be some deep questions that are in there. It's our goal that when those questions come up, we will then get them on the website and we can start to answer some of them. So, I'll quit rambling. Anything that you would like added to this slide or this presentation? Is it too much? Is it not enough? Feedback on what you just saw? Yes?
I'd like to ask a question. When you have this public hearing, you come back to the board then, because you know we can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We'd like to have a summary of
Great.
the questions.
Great question. My intention is that after we get done with the town hall meetings, I will then come to every board meeting after that until you guys decide when you're gonna move there. So I intend to be there at your April board meeting, and I know some of you may not be here. Right, and then we'll just give them an update. What I anticipate in April is, hey, we had our board meetings, here's the feedback that we got, here's what we heard, and then obviously we would come back in May and give you an update in regards to those things. So, yep, that's the intention, yep.
Mr. DeSalle?
I guess the one thing that's been hammered on me several times is, why aren't we housing out of county? So just that there's a very good explanation at the cost and,
Yep.
you know, the vehicles, the transport personnel, the whole 9 yards,
Yep.
why it isn't.
Yeah, and we're working on a comparison that I'll have in the presentation. We're working on those details to get that, to address it, yep.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Jim Meyer?
So, still haven't heard yet, I think I asked you this last time, what's the plan for this existing building? You showed some issues with it
Yep.
structurally.
Yep.
I don't see that number anywhere in here, and it's something I think we're gonna have to address, if I'm understanding you correctly. So, has there been any talk on how we're gonna remodel this, use it,
Yeah, so-
utilize the space?
So technically, building the jail doesn't require you to do anything with that space. Now, if you wanted us to, when we got into the next phase of design, to be able to determine the use of that space and put a number to it, we could do that. Right now, we haven't identified what would go into that space, but it is something that we could do and put a dollar figure to that. But by building the jail doesn't mean you have to do anything to that space. It could sit vacant. I've got some counties that have their jail sit vacant and they use it for storage until they identify that they have need, knowing that they have real estate there that could be renovated into something else. that would be the topic of discussion. But just building the jail doesn't force you to say, I gotta spend money in this space.
Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sort of intrigued by the information in regard to housing our prisoners elsewhere.
Mhm.
And so you've done a pretty good job of explaining why that is not a good idea.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that other counties know that it's not a good idea, so, there's been a lot of talk about that we're gonna house somebody else's prisoners. So it seems to me if you have an argument about why we shouldn't house our prisoners somewhere else, it's not likely that someone else is gonna wanna house their prisoners here either.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that there's still out-of-county housing that's done. To what percentage it's happening in the state, I don't know. But I will tell you that the out-of-county housing, from the perspective of those counties that are considering their jail needs, they're doing the same consideration of what you are. So that's why, when we talk about right-sizing your jail, you don't wanna right-size the jail with the mentality that I'm doing it to gain revenue, because then you would potentially be overbuilding. But if you design your jail for expansive purposes, meaning that for the next 30, 40 years, we've got enough beds, you will have the ability to do so. Now, I will tell you that there are some counties that just because they don't have a bed issue, they may still have to house out of county because they've got a conflict with that individual within their own space. That does happen. It's not that that's a big volume of it, but that does happen within the state, so.
So we're not building with that in mind.
No, I mean, when we were looking at the projections, that we were really targeting what is the need for Rusk County now and into the future, knowing that as you have more beds available, because you wanna have growth available in there, that you have the opportunity to do it, but that you're not building that from a revenue perspective, right? That does drive bed count.
So is there a trend to increase the amount of incarceration, from a public policy perspective? Or is there a trend towards more alternative treatment?
So when you're talking.
Programs and less,
Yeah, when you're talking trends, I can tell you how I would explain a trend in the counties that I deal with. The trend in regards to those that are dealing with incarceration depends on who's in office at the time, and it can trend one way for a while, it can trend back another way. You've got to be able to have a facility that can manage those trends. I will tell you that based on the programming side that's put into this jail, is that in order to deal with those individuals who are within the jail, the programming component really has a lot of emphasis, meaning that we're putting program space in there, the DOC requires a space, meaning that there are programs there to help that individual that's made the bad decisions to correct their thinking so that they can get out of jail and start to become somebody who's positive in society. So that is a big push, and that's definitely something that's been emphasized here by the sheriff and his staff of needing that space to be able to do so.
So would that reduce the individual stay for a prisoner?
Well, the goal would be that the state, once they're in that state is gonna be determined by the event that they participated in prior to getting there. The goal is that that's the last stay that they have, right? That they're not coming back in. Because one of the things that you see is it becomes cyclical, and as we have some time, and now you've got them, they're a captive audience there to work on that programming.
I'm just saying that if there's a trend towards reducing jail populations
Yep.
through more programming, which I applaud.
Yes.
More use of alternative and diversion programs.
Yep.
Is that being factored into the projections?
Oh, yeah, yeah, and I think historically of what you've seen there, we're not projecting this huge spike, right? It's a gradual increase to be able to deal with the management of that. And it's not overbuilding for this huge growth, but it's keeping that thing constant that's tied in. That's why the number of beds has been in question, because we started at a higher number, we've been able to reduce that down to see some of that savings. So, yeah. Good questions.
Any other questions? Mr. Randy Taylor?
That building that's out there would have to be demolished, was the
cost of that factored into
Yes.
the whole?
Yeah. Yeah, it won't take much to take that building down.
Any other questions or comments? Or is it the consensus of the board, you can move on with the website? Okay,
It sounds good. I hope I can see you all in April, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
thank you. Number 2, Hawkins daycare proposal for Old Hawkins School.
Hi, some of you might remember me from presenting at the Finance Committee meeting. My name is Amanda Bradley. This is Allison Anderson. She works with Indian Head and is the lead on the Quest grant. She's here to support me with this project. In your packets, I did send the business plan and projections for a $60,000 grant from the county and then a $200,000 grant from the county, just to put numbers on paper. There was no decision made at the last meeting. Phil was the only board member that reached out to me and asked additional questions, so I tried to give him what he wanted. I know he's not here today. I don't know if he passed on any of that information that I provided to him. But I feel like the jail conversation was like a good segue into this. So before we get to children and individuals going to jail, we want to bring them up, starting in daycare, in a center that's regulated. And we want to do that in Hawkins, using the old school building. I presented for over an hour the last time I was here for the Finance Committee, and I know I don't have that amount of time today. I did create a PowerPoint and I sent that over to Ashley, so we can kind of just go through some of the basics. I know you're not gonna want to read every single thing that I put into the business plan and into the financial projections because it's boring. I did have Allison just hand out 3, I'm gonna call them letters of recommendation, which again, we're not gonna go through and read those, but I just wanted you guys to have them to show that there's community support for this endeavor. So one of the letters is from Wadeen Stevens, who is the HR manager at Jeld-Wen. One of them is from Erin Richter, who is an elementary school teacher here in Ladysmith, and she lives in Hawkins. And then another one from Jen Stamper, who is a manager at Jeld-Wen. So, with that being said, the old school in Hawkins, address 510 Main Street, it's for sale by owner. And I'm not gonna go into the whole history of the school because I did that last time. But anyways, it's for sale. It's a 20-year-old building. It's not old. It's reusable, if you will. So we're here just to ask for financial support of the county. Originally, my request was to use ARPA funds that were available. I understand that those are no longer available, but I'm still here to hopefully get your support some way, somehow. With the child care center in Hawkins, right now Rusk County is considered a daycare desert. There are only 4 regulated child care centers in Rusk County, with Jeld-Wen being the 2nd largest employer in Rusk County. They do bring 362 employees to Hawkins every day. Some of those families are traveling 60 miles just to get their child to daycare. Without daycare, there's no workforce, no economy. And at the last meeting, one of the requests was to get an updated survey out there to know exactly how many children need childcare. So we did that. We put a survey out, which would be the second one that I've done now, and within hours, I had over 27 children needing care, within the next 12 months in Hawkins. And in Hawkins, there's no regulated daycare. There's one in-home daycare that I'm aware of, and then the closest regulated daycare is in Ladysmith, so it doesn't benefit those living in Hawkins. So along with the daycare, the school has a lot of potential. In the business plan, I also outlined having a fitness center and an event center, promoting a healthy lifestyle, open gym, walking inside. Lots of people walk outside in Hawkins. In the winter months, there's nowhere to go. And just having a safe place for kids and families to go. I think Jen put that in her letter here that we have bars, but it's not really the ideal environment to bring a child when you have events for them. And then just having a place for fundraisers where bands can play, wedding receptions, class reunions. That will also just bring an additional revenue in lieu of the revenue from the daycare. And I have been working on this project for almost a year. We have cash on hand that we're ready to put into the school. We received $7,000 from Indian Head for a Dream Up grant that goes specific to daycare, to buy supplies, startup, what have you. And then the potential funding, we have been working with David Wurzba with WEDC. He's out of Weyerhaeuser. They do offer a 1-to-1 match with renovations only. And then there's a small business grant also through Indian Head, and that's $5,000. So with all of the funding, there's really not any funding for buying a building. So that's where we are stuck. If the county were to pitch in, there are benefits for the county. Increased population. There might be individuals that want to move to Hawkins now, but there's no childcare. Increased taxes. Currently, the school is generating, I think, $600 a year with taxes, but once it's renovated and fixed up, it would obviously increase. Increase safe and healthy families. So going back to the whole jail situation, we would be bringing those children up in a safe and healthy environment, having a center with licensed and regulated caretakers. Increased workforce numbers. So right now we have projected to hire 4 full-time teachers and 2 part-time individuals. Then just increase economy and decrease crime. There would be a place for kids to go. Even the other night, there was family reading night at the Flambeau School. And I live in Hawkins, so for me to bring my child over back to Tony, where they just came to school, or came home from school, it's a hike to drive over there. So if we had a place where we could do some events like that, just during the week to keep the kids off the streets, we could do that. We have lots of other ideas for the building, including a thrift store, community garden. Possibilities are really endless, actually, but anyways, does anybody have any questions based off of that or anything from the last meeting?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was just curious about, I was looking at some of the information that we received in our packet here. On your pro forma income statement, it shows under expenses, it shows employee benefits of 0. Are you not going to have benefits for your employees?
Most childcare providers don't.
You do not?
They don't have
I didn't
benefits.
know, that's why
Yeah,
I'm asking.
nope, that's good. I mean, I would love to get to that point to offer benefits, but most do not. Some things that I have been thinking about is just providing like raises and bonuses and other. Oh yeah, one of the things from the last meeting, a good thing for daycare, just like flexibility with their hours. And I talked to other daycares around the area, and that's kind of how they can keep employees because they can offer those flexible hours because the center would be open from like 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. just based on the workforce in the area. Joplin starts really early, so we'd have to be there early. And then this would be able to accommodate for the before and after school children, because Joplin starts so early, there's not a place where the children can go before they start school. Like the bus comes to my house to pick up my son at 7 a.m. So if Joplin starts at 5, from 5 to 7, then there's no one to watch a child.
Also, no training. I'm just wondering, are these things that you would maybe make it harder to find people to work at the daycare, or?
A lot of the training is covered by programs that Indian Head has, so I don't know if that's what you mean, but we think there will be little to no cost in regards to training the employees. And I have 4 employees in mind, and some of them already have training. Some of them are doing the training right now, and some of them have had training in the past, but it would have to be renewed.
I know, as you had mentioned in your presentation, that you would have the highest, I mean, with your employees would be trained and you know, specialized in that field of caring for children. So,
Yeah.
you would have, I mean, they would, if they're not trained, if you have someone with a candidate, then it would be up to them to get that, seek out and get that training prior to the employment for you.
I might be able to provide a little bit more information on that. So I know Amanda mentioned earlier, I am from Indian Head. So there are some programs that can help with the cost of training through Indian Head, but then also through the Department of Children and Families, different child care programs that are out there that do offer either reimbursement or full coverage of the costs for training. I know that Amanda does have a handful of individuals in mind that have that basic, the most expensive education pieces already taken care of. So there is quite a bit of funding out there to cover the costs for that training that is needed.
So, what would be the basics that you would require from people? I mean, would they have to know a little something about first aid, I would think, and
All childcare providers in a licensed childcare are required to be CPR and first aid certified. They also have to have certain childcare courses, credit courses through technical college, that type of thing. It depends on the position, what the qualifications are. But yes, all CPR, first aid certified, that's a licensing requirement. And then there are other courses that are required as well, for abusive head trauma, shaken baby syndrome, that type of thing.
does state require that you have some type of medical person on board? I'm just curious.
No, there are forms that families do fill out and sign, giving permission for childcare providers to, contact, their emergency providers, primary providers, that type of thing, on site. There's typically not anybody that has any specialized medical training, but that CPR first aid course is pretty extensive for the child care profession.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Willingham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding is that Indian Head has a couple of additional programs that have been discussed, that they are partnering with daycare centers for the early childhood partnership program with the Head Start.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the daycare in Bruce has been working on that project, and I think you're in town too as well. So that might be a
Absolutely.
an avenue there. I also think that some of the funding for that has been specifically designated for bringing daycare providers up to a higher standard, so that that would be helpful.
Yes, and we have discussed and, kind of gone over the options of the Head Start funding as well. There are additional requirements, with that, specifically, staffing things, that are kind of more hoops to jump through, but it's something that we've kind of discussed looking into the future, once things were kind of established and, got the ball
That's
rolling.
significant extra funding.
Yes, it is, absolutely.
Yeah, that is a good point. We didn't, I did not put in the projections any additional subsidy programs, that are out there, so childcare counts, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a big one right now, and has been throughout,
In your survey information, when I was looking through your proposal, I'm looking at your projected salary ranges. If that's compatible or comparable with current programs, but I do know that, the Head Start program is struggling to find teachers, assistant teachers, at a considerably higher rate. So that may be something we're gonna have to take a look at and figure out.
Yeah.
Qualified staff and keep them. Otherwise, you're gonna be training them for somebody else.
yeah. And we've definitely, staffing has really been the biggest consideration with the whole project, because we know staffing is hard to find. I don't know how, but I found individuals that live in Hawkins that either are stay-at-home moms or are already an in-home daycare provider, or, yeah, I think they all are stay-at-home moms, that have came forward and showed interest in working. The wages are low, and I did talk with the Bruce Daycare, and they started out individuals low as well, with that opportunity to get increases based on the additional training that they do, so.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would like to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Discussion, possible motion. Number 3, there's no one here to represent, so we're moving it to next month. Number 4, amend extended leave bank time policy.
Yes, yes,
Okay, so currently, our extended leave bank time policy states that employees can use their extended leave bank time instead of PTO if an employee has 5 or more consecutive days of sick time. And then it goes on to say that an employee may request in writing to the personnel committee to use the extended leave bank for FMLA. So essentially, if an employee wants to use their extended leave bank time and they are on FMLA, they are required to write a note to the personnel committee, and then we have to discuss that in a closed session in our personnel committee meetings to approve that. What I'm asking for, and it approved or went through personnel already, is that we can just have, once an employee is on FMLA, so an approved FMLA event, that they can use extended leave bank time without going to the personnel committee. That is what we are requesting.
And Mr. Willingham with the motion, second by Mr. Mike Raymond. Is there any question? None being heard. Vote.
Maybe.
I think it's broke.
We'll fix that, it depends on how you're gonna vote.
Better give Tanya a thumbs up on it now.
17 yes, passed majority. 5, wage increase for fair coordinator and fair intern.
Currently, we have, returning fair staff. They don't get termed at the end of the year, they're just, continual part-time, but in the past, if they return, they get $1 an hour increase, at a cap of $15 an hour. So requesting that a black staff receive a $1 increase from $12.50 to $13.50, and Brittany Wiles, cap out at 15 for a raise of 50 cents. Completely out of the fair budget, no county levy.
And motion by Mr. Cassell, second by Mr. Biller. Any questions? None being heard? Seventeen yes, passed by majority.
I'm gonna depart for time.
Closed session announced by chair. Consider a Closed motion in convenience of closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 9.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, and investing in the public funds and conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or other than reasons required for session, to which proposal. To sell one of Marshfield Clinic's health system building and surrounding lands located at 906 College Avenue, following Wisconsin. Lady Smith, Wisconsin, in the discussions of one HCA offered to purchase the rate for the parcel numbers 24603 596-0000 or 603-597-0000 246-03598 0000 and 246-03599-0000 and 2. The proposed RFP process for the following parcel numbers of 246-03596-0000, 246-03597-0000, 246-03598-0000, 246-03599-0000, 246-035-600000, and 246-035-658-0005.
It's hard to hear back here, can you read that over one more time?
So we have a motion by Mr. Dillard and a second by Mr. Hauser to go into closed session. So we will be in closed session.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
17 yes, passing the majority. Go into closed session. Is there any more discussion or questions about the discussion we just had.
So you want to,
Entertain a motion
for the items, discussed in closed session, and then the maker of the motion will set forth.
for the items discussion in the closed session. Any items that were discussed?
Based on, right, the subject matter of the closed session. So now, we're back in open session, so, you could entertain a motion, to have action on those items that were discussed in closed session.
A motion for the action to be discussed in closed session. First by Mr. Overshoot, second by Mr. Raven.
So my motion is to approve the RFP as presented and also approve the administrative coordinator, approve the RFP as presented and allow the administrative coordinator to move on that. And then approve having an appraiser, the administrative coordinator hire appraiser up to $5,500. And the board acknowledges that the HCA offer has expired, but they are encouraged to bid on the RFP.
If I could just request, sir, you want the motion to, identify that, yes, indeed, if the offer, the HCA offer has expired, but that the county is not going to, pursue further negotiation of the HCA offer at this time.
Sure, I think, it expired, I think, yeah, that's fine.
And then the second.
We already have a second by Mike Raven. Any other questions on it? So,
You mentioned the administrative coordinator, do you want her to work with legal counsel or?
She can work with whoever is necessary, yes. I don't know that needs to be an opposite, the thing, but we have to work with whoever is appropriate people, so that's something.
any other questions, discussion?
Wasn't the motion to approve the RFP as amended or changed?
I don't think we've done amendments to that yet.
No, it was, the RFP as presented, and then, giving authority to the administrative coordinator, to implement it, was the motion. If you want to have the final decision on the RFP to come back to the board, you could. You could have it go to the property committee to make final decisions, or you could have the administrative coordinator have that authority. Right now, the way the motion, was stated is that the administrative coordinator has the authority to finalize the RFP.
I'm fine, I think you guys did a really good job on that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thomas?
Can I amend that motion now? Or do you wanna wait?
To amend the original motion?
To amend in regards to the RFP, to move it, instead of 60 days to 90 days.
I don't think you need to do that, because Ashley, the board essentially is delegating authority to the administrative coordinator to make that change. So it's not specifically in the motion, but
I disagree, that's why I made my motion as presented.
as presented, okay,
So
then.
right now the dates are as presented, so if they wanna change the dates,
So basically,
they need to make a motion to amend the dates.
No,
I make the motion to amend the dates.
To what?
Well, you have May.
I have written down that you would like me to post for 90 days after we get the appraisal back.
Right.
Okay.
Mike?
When the proposals come back, Mr. Chairman, I would like to recommend that it comes to the full board too, through the property committee into the full board. Appreciate it, you know what I mean? So we got a good idea
What we're looking at?
who raised their hand and what's all of them.
We could get in a leg there with property coming before county board falls in between.
And I tried to avoid that with the schedule, so I'll make sure that the dates allow for that.
That's right.
Anything else? Questions? comments? If not. Tom,
My thing is broke again.
again?
Yeah.
What do you do to it over there? Oh, now we got it. 17 yes, passed by majority vote.
Sure. Do you mind getting rich?
Yep. Getting rich.
Getting comfy. I just wanna add too, I think Ms. Heath did a great job on the
No, I had coffee.
Yeah, it shows, baby. What's that for?
Got up there, you want to go into motion, close session.
Good wait for council.
Okay. Yeah.
Closed session, no chair. Consideration, motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Stat 19.8. Deliberating or negotiating purchase of public property, investing of public funds and conducting other specified public businesses. Whenever competitive or bargaining reasons required in closed session to for 1101 Lake Avenue Building 246-02-144-0000. I have a motion by Mr. Raven and a second by Terry Wedway. Vote now. No, we already went past that point.
Jim, can you vote?
No. 17 yes, we are in now closed session.
Okay, we're now in open session. Based upon the conduct at a closed session, it'd be appropriate for somebody to make a motion to approve the lease as written, provided that the shareholders of Oak Leaf Clinic Inc. sign a personal guarantee guaranteeing all the terms and conditions of the lease.
Motion by Mr. Raven and a second by Colonel Kudo. Dan, you don't wanna talk, do you? No. Any other questions? If not, we can vote on it.
Mr. Hauser?
17 yes, passed by majority. Okay, resolution number 8. Creation of an ADRC information and assistant position. Need a motion and a second. Motion by Phil Schneider and a second by Neil Smith. You got 2 minutes.
I used them during the last closed session.
You say 2 minutes?
No, I took it whatever.
Good evening, everybody. Jeremy Jacobs, Rusk County Health and Human Services. I believe that Jen Jaco and Kathy Walters might be joining online from their homes. There's Kathy right there. Kathy is our ADRC director here in Rusk County. Jen Jaco is the director over in Barron County, and there she is. So, good evening, ladies. Ladies and gentlemen of this county board, Rusk County Health and Human Services has a unique opportunity within the Aging Disability Resource Center to utilize an increased allocation to our general purpose revenue. Per this resolution, we ask to create an additional full-time information and assistance position. This position is a grade 10 with a starting wage of $23.30 per hour. The fiscal impact is $77,000. The resolution says all of that. Rusk County will continue collaborating with Barron County in many creative ways. And creating this additional information and assistance position will have an immediate direct impact on serving consumers locally. The general purpose revenue annual increase of $73,456 in conjunction with available Medicaid reimbursement will allow for the creation to be cost neutral. This position is responsible for engaging elderly and disabled residents and their families to provide information, resources, and services available in the county to help them remain as independent as possible. They will conduct functional screens, functional assessments for determination of eligibility for state-funded long-term care programming, and refer to those programs for enrollment. For those reasons, I support the passage of this resolution. Thank you. Any questions? Most people in the room have heard our pitch about the increased allocation for the ADRC, which is a big deal. It doesn't happen very often, and so we have $73,000 extra dollars.
Does Kathy have anything to add to that?
Kathy, Jen?
We just, it's Kathy, and then, yeah, we, are super excited about this opportunity to help our county, further, serve the people that, need our programming.
Jen, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just add that, across the state, legislators is recognizing that we're serving more and more customers. We've provided information in your packet about that. And so, they are providing this additional allocation, hoping that all of us look at that and are able to add staff to help meet that need.
Any other questions? Comments? If not, we can vote on it. 17 yes, passed by majority.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 9, designating local assistance and tribal consistency funds to be used for internal Rusk County project number 2. Motion. Motion by Jim Meyer, second by Mike Raven.
Does anyone have any questions on what we're looking at doing here? Well, so it's been brought up, and we've been working on this for well over the year. The east wing of the round barn is not in good shape. Last year at the fair, we were not able to use it. Right now, we're kind of using it as storage. It's a safety concern, and the way it looks right now, we have another increase in numbers of kids showing at our fair, and we're out of room, so we need to find somewhere to house. This year, we're looking at possibly putting the goats in there, and we gotta have somewhere to put them. Last year, we even ran out and we had to put one outside, so Being able to take this one down and build and put up a new one would be very beneficial.
Any questions? Comments? Mr. Randy Gator.
John, I think you had indicated, this 35,000, but your livestock, group is contributing?
Yes, the livestock committee has, agreed to pay 25% or up to 17,000. And the, fair board has agreed to also pay 25%. And we got a quote back in February, it was roughly around 65,000. To take down the old building, put in a new concrete floor, with haunches and an all new building up in place of the other one. It's a 30 by 60, same size as what we have down there now.
Any other questions? Comments? If not, we can vote. Seventeen yes, passed by majority vote.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Johnny.
Thank you. Made the lady.
Recognition, Casey Seth, Rusk School District, 2024 Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association Speaking Contest, Elementary Division. Joshua Price, Rusk School District, 2024 Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association Speaking Contest, Junior Division. Nick.
Thanks, everybody. I just wanted to take an opportunity to recognize the students that moved on from our state, or our conservation speaking contest. It's spring break, unfortunately they couldn't be here tonight, but I thought it was a great opportunity to recognize them. So Casey Seth in the elementary division, she took first place in our contest here at the county, went on to the regional contest, took second place at the regional contest, that was in Shell Lake. In the junior division, Joshua Price, he took first place here at our contest, took first place at the regional contest, and took first place at the state contest. Wow. So our speaker in the junior division won the whole state contest. And so that's all I wanted to share. I wanted to recognize them. I have invited them to come to the next Land and Water Conservation Committee meeting. Hopefully, they will be there to give their speech. If not, they will be there at least if somebody, or if anybody wanted to come by and say hi, and shake their hand. So they will be at the committee meeting, April 9th, 8 o'clock. Thank you.
Thanks for heading that, Nick.
Okay. We have more recognition. I'm gonna hand it over to Connie. Here.
So, we have a few people that are leaving. Mr. Hauser, you have been here since April 27th of 2004. Thank you for your service. Mr. Stout, you have been here since April 15th of 2014. Thank you for your service. Mr. Raven, you have been here since April 15th of 2014 with Mr. Stout. Thank you for your service. Mr. Tater, you filled a position, I kind of had a little difficulty here because it's like you came on August 23rd of 1999. And I thought, well, why did he do that? Well, it was open. So the first time you were listed in the book was 2000. So as of August 23rd of 1999, you have been here. And thank you for your service.
I came on in
1974. I look back farther. 1974. But there was
I had a hiatus in there though. So.
Oh, that's why. Okay. All right. And Mr. Schmidt, April 17th of 2012. Thank you for your service.
Wow.
Mr. Goodis is leaving us. He's just been here for about a year and a half, but thank you, Dan. Jonathan Undershoot, he's been here for a 2-year term. Thank you for your service.
Then I'd like to say, wish you and all the best in the upcoming elections for anybody and everybody that's coming up. And announcements would be changed April County Board to April 16th.
I had asked this to be put on the agenda as far as the Housing Authority Board. Mike Raven and I serve on the Housing Authority Board, and we're gonna become citizens. And, but that's okay for the Housing Authority because that group is supposed to be made up of citizens. So currently, Mike and I are on the board, Pauline Lundgren, and so we just want to let you know that we're willing to continue on that board. And if there's anybody else that would like to be on the board, we cannot have more than 2 elected officials on that board.
We did look at all.
And there's no per diem, so we need volunteers, so.
No per diem.
Mike, anything?
We got a vested interest in it, and you know, what is it so far, we've brought a long ways back with Landmark and, we list folks and, you know, we're starting to see a little bit of light on the end of the tunnel. In 5 different communities in the county, so.
We are planning to meet
We gotta move on
quarterly.
just a little bit, this wasn't on the agenda, so we have to kinda keep it short here. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Get to the next meeting. You already did.
It's just a note.
So it's April 16th.
April 16th, I already read it.
Okay.
9 o'clock in the morning. Motion by Bill, second by Mark Schmidt. Adjourn.
No, I got surgery next week Thursday. Marlene, how are you doing? So I was done already. Pre-op. Just pre-op. Surgery next week. Just fun. This is there's 2 different meniscus surgery. This is the good so this one. Yeah, that's fine. My son and I are going to last yeah, we're gonna first we have 4 days experience. 12 days meeting in person. Have a safe trip. I'm always okay, let's do it. And then I do this. So you can do a lot of I'm gonna try. I was just walking.